Tuesday, and it's time for me to start the second week of my Bookopoly-thon vlog. So I just got home from work. I finished up the first vlog this morning, but when I finished off the first vlog, I had not finished the last book that I was reading, so I did finish during my lunch break Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. This one I gave 4 stars instead of 5, and it's actually more like a 3.5 star. I loved book 1 in the series so much, and I had such high hopes, but for whatever reason, book 2 was not bad by any means. Like, I did end up really enjoying it, and there are a couple of things that I think B.B. Alston does really well, which I will talk about in a second. But the biggest, problems I had with this book were with the pacing and then the ending of this book. So I'm obviously not going to tell you what happens, but it does sort of end on a cliffhanger rather than having a more episodic feel, which is my personal preference for this kind of series. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think because in my mind, when I think about middle grade fantasy series like this, I think more in terms of things like the Percy Jackson series or Harry Potter, where each book wraps up its own storyline and there's still an overarching plot, but each book is a concise year, or in this case it's one summer, kind of like the Percy Jackson books. So it kind of not annoys me, but I wish that it felt a little more wrapped up. I feel like book 1 did feel wrapped up to me, and I'm wondering if maybe it was the case of this author wasn't sure if he was going to be able to finish his series, because I know sometimes with YA series and stuff, I think Sabatier's book, An Ember in the Ashes, was written so that it could be a standalone if it didn't sell well. So I don't know if it's the same thing here, and that's why that book wrapped up so well by itself, but I just feel for me, I wanted a more cohesive ending than I got. The things that I think B.B. Alston does really, really well, I think his character work is amazing. I think the world building is a little weak, but it's also for children. So I feel bad complaining too much about that. I wish that he spent a little more time in Amari's head, since we are from her perspective and she's not from the supernatural world. I wish we did get a little more of her being oh, what's that? And learning about things, because that's my preferred world building tactic to read about, I guess. Which, again, that's what happens in Percy Jackson and Harry Potter for these characters that are not familiar with the world that they're in. And I hate to compare it that much to those two, but those are just the only two, middle grade series that I've read enough to, have comparisons to, I guess. But I do like the inclusion of a bunch of different kinds of, supernatural and magical beings, even if we don't always get a full explanation, and sometimes they're just name dropped. Sometimes that worked for me, sometimes it didn't work as well for me. My thing that I think B.B. Alston does so well is setting up a mystery plot. So each of these books so far has had some sort of mystery element where Amari is trying to investigate something that is happening in the supernatural world that the adults, for whatever reason, aren't looking into or can't look into. So in the first book, her brother is missing, and that's the whole catalyst of the book. How she even finds out about the supernatural world is that she's looking for her brother. And it's called the Supernatural Investigations series, and she's in the supernatural investigators clique almost, or major kind of, for the summer camp. I don't know how else to explain it, but you pick a specialty, or sometimes you get a specialty assigned to you, and it's based on some of your innate abilities. So Amari is in the investigations, supernatural investigations. She's an agent, just like her brother was. All of that to say, I really like the way that B.B. Alston sets up the mystery plots, and he does a really good job of setting up red herrings and sprinkling clues throughout. And I will say, even though this is a book for children, I don't catch on to the mysteries. He's got good twists. I'll give it to him. If you can be believable to an adult woman reading this book, I'm sure your 12 to 15-year-old audience loves it. 10 to 15-year-old? I don't know what the age for middle grade is. 10 to 13? I'm not really sure. All of that to say, I think he does a really, really good job with that, and that is his strong suit in the series. So even though not everything works for me in these books, the mysteries really do, and I'm going to continue reading the series for the mystery plots, because I think they're really well done. I do hope that the next book that comes out is a little easier for me to get back into, because I was hooked to the first book from the beginning, and for whatever reason the second book took me a while to get my footing right, if that makes sense. But I do have sprints tonight, so I'm gonna need to do a second roll or a third roll for Bookopoly to pick a new book, so I'm gonna do that here in a second. And then I think my fiance and I'm gonna change, and then my fiance and I are gonna go for a quick little stroll around the neighborhood just to see what's up, because we like to get outside. But I'm gonna go get changed so that we can go on our little walk, and then I will let you know when I pick my next book. Nine. So last time we were on favorite setting, and let's go forward 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A book that features a mystery. You just saw my roll for Bookathon, my third roll for the whole readathon, so my third prompt that I'm fulfilling. If I could get words out, that would be amazing. I am a little bummed because this prompt would have actually been perfect for the book that I finished today, Amari and the Great Game, because as I mentioned in the clip right before this, Baby Austin does a really good job of incorporating the mysteries into these books. So I'm gonna have a look around and see what I can find that I'm interested in reading that might have a mystery in it. I do want to read more mysteries, so maybe I'll find an actual mystery to read or something else, but my sprints start in about 20 minutes, so I gotta figure something out that I can get quickly. My bad. I've got to figure something out that I can get pretty quickly, so probably with an ebook on my phone. Or I might read something physically. I do have a book that I own that I started physically reading a couple months ago that I put down for whatever reason and never picked back up. So I could start reading that tonight and find something else for my next Bookathon prompt. But I'm just going to have a look-see and see what I can come up with. And of course, I will let you know what I'm reading when I figure it out. Okay, I'm back. It's been like 10 minutes. I finished heating up my dinner, and then I realized that the book that I lost today as an ebook doesn't have a waitlist for it. So I could just immediately borrow it again, and it's a mystery thriller. So that's what I'm gonna read for this prompt. It's called A Good Marriage by Kimberly McCreight, and I believe it's about a woman who used to be friends with this guy who has now been accused of murdering his wife, and she's an attorney. I don't know if they met in law school or before law school or really when, but she is now his attorney trying to defend him for the murder of his wife. And I'm really excited to get into it. So I'm going to start sprints here in the next 10 minutes. And if you were on those sprints, shout out to you. I haven't been there yet, but I hope some people show up this time. I posted them yesterday, so I'm hoping that people have gotten excited. I think I'm going to do Bookopoly style sprints where you roll the dice for each amount of time. So that's my plan. I'm going to try to scarf down as much of this dinner before it starts as I can. And I will talk to you soon. Hopefully I'll have an update tonight. Hello. So it is Wednesday now, I think. Wednesday the 7th. And I finished my book today. I just got home from work, so that's why I look a little bit like this. But I finished A Good Marriage, and I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so well done. Sorry there are stripes on my face. Should I try to move? Hold on. I think it's just the time of day that it is, but I moved a little bit, so hopefully it's kind of better. I absolutely love this book. So it's a domestic thriller following this attorney who is called up by a classmate from law school who she hasn't heard or seen or heard from in over a decade. And his wife just turned up dead at the bottom of the stairs of their house. And so he calls her to be like, hey, I'm being charged with the murder of my wife. I need you to help me get out of jail. And it sort of goes from there. And you learn all sorts of twists and turns. This book follows multiple points of view and multiple timelines, which is not something that I usually like in my mystery thrillers. But I don't mind multiple points of view. I don't like multiple timelines in thrillers. For me, for whatever reason, it kind of cheapens the effect sometimes. Because then it's only a mystery because you're not getting all the information, if that makes sense, which I think works for some people. It's just not something that I personally love. But I did really like this book. I did call several of the twists from kind of far away, although I will say I don't hate that. I actually kind of like it when you're able to predict things that are going to happen, and then when the reveals come that you didn't necessarily predict, when they make sense, and you're like, oh yeah, there were all these clues leading to that. Also, this was another one of those books where I felt like there were a couple different options where the author could have gone. So I didn't know absolutely for a fact what she was doing before it happened, but it was one of the possibilities that I had considered, which again is a thing that I like. So I do think that if you like the same types of things in mysteries and thrillers that I like, which is more of an emphasis on the mystery aspect, with like darkness sprinkled in, but not necessarily hinging on a twist that comes out of nowhere, which is something that I really dislike in thrillers. I think that's an unpopular opinion because I know so many people want to be like shocked and, you know, really surprised by the twist. I don't like that as much. It feels cheap to me. It feels a little like finale of Pretty Little Liars. Let's just bring in a character that didn't exist the whole time and have them be the wrong person or the culprit. I really don't like that kind of thing, because then it's like, what was the point of it even being a mystery? I just feel like I understand why people like that for like the thrilling aspect of it. But for me, I want a mystery that I can potentially solve. So this book was great for that. I think if you like more mystery heavy things, you would really like this. It is, or at least one of the criticisms that I've seen of it is that it's slower paced. I really liked the pacing of it. It worked for me really well. So that being said, I do need to pick another book. I did go ahead and get another audiobook because the way I was able to read this is we were doing a lot of stuff at work that didn't really require a lot of my brain power. So I was listening to it at work while I was working on other stuff, because I did find an audiobook of it. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I listened to it on my walk to work and then on my lunch break, and then as I was just finishing up some like clerical tasks throughout the day that didn't necessarily need me to focus on them as much, but they did need to get done. So for my walk home, I got a different audiobook, and I got Heartland by Sarah Smarsh, which is a memoir / family history about a girl growing up in poverty in a farm town near Wichita, Kansas, which you don't know, I just moved to Kansas City, Missouri. So Wichita, Kansas is obviously on the Kansas side, but it's relatively close to where I am now. It's like 3 hours away. I've never been to Wichita, but this book has been on my TBR for a while. It honestly has very mixed reviews, but it does sound like the type of thing that I would like, because it talks a lot about like socioeconomic status and classism in the US. I think the subtitle is like a memoir on growing up poor in the richest country in the world or something like that. And I do think that like rural poverty is such a unique perspective to poverty, so I'm really interested to get her point of view on that. I am very attracted to / intrigued with the like rural experience, because I feel like it's something that's very overlooked. Specifically, one thing that she talks about in this book about Kansas is, or about her family in Kansas, is how when people say that they like have heard of Kansas, it's called like a flyover state. It's one of those square states in the middle. Like people don't really consider it with very much depth of thinking. And so I'm really interested to get the perspective of someone who's from there. But right now I have to edit my video. And then I'm probably going to roll for another prompt tonight, so that I know either I'm going to fit in that book that I'm listening to as a prompt, but I feel like it probably won't fit any of the prompts, which is why I just started listening to it, because it's nonfiction. And then I'll find an ebook, or I'll go to the physical library tomorrow probably to pick up a book if I can't find an ebook for my next prompt for Bookoplathon. But I'm doing pretty well so far. I finished 3 prompts. It's the 7th, so I feel good about this. I'm going to go edit my vlog, and I will catch up with you when I pick my next book. 9. Ooh, so last time we ended on a book with a mystery plot, and we got a 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Another chance card. Okay, so as you can see, there are 15 books on this list now. Let's go ahead and do random number generator. So we got a 10, which is The 10,000 Doors of January. So that's the next book I'm going to read. Okay, so as you just saw, I've picked my next book, and I am going to be reading The 10,000 Doors of January by Alexie Harrow, or Harrow, I don't know how it's pronounced. But I honestly only put this on my TBR because Maddie from Book Browsing Blog loves it so much. So I'm pretty sure it's a portal fantasy, and it honestly sounds a little bit similar to the concept of Strange the Dreamer, which is another book that I've never read. But in that book, as in this one, there's like a magical book that the main character reads, and it transports them to a different place. I don't know. Again, I've never read either of these books yet, so I don't know if that's actually what happens, but it kind of sounds like that's what happens. But I think there's a little bit of like historical fantasy in this one, because it sounds like January is the ward of a very wealthy man. And I don't know if that's still a thing that happens. It honestly might just be a fantasy thing, but I'm really interested to read this one. I did find an ebook very quickly from my library, so I will be reading this as an ebook. I will also be continuing Heartland, which is the audiobook that I started today. I'll probably listen to that on my walk to and from work, and then if I have any more of that like data entry clerical stuff to do, I will probably listen to Heartland while I do it. But this I plan on reading during my lunch break tomorrow, and probably a little bit right now because I'm about to get in bed. I'm gonna shower first, but then I'm gonna go to bed, and I'm gonna try to read a little bit of this and get a little bit acquainted, and I will let you know when I have an update. So it is now Sunday. It's been a while since I've actually talked to this vlog. I don't know if I've talked to you guys since Thursday, maybe on Friday, but I don't think so. So I wanted to give you some quick updates. I am about a quarter of the way into the 10,000 Doors of January, a little over a quarter. I'm liking it. I really liked it to start, but the more it goes along, the more I feel like it's just like whimsical writing and the plot isn't really gripping me that much. It's about this girl, January, in the turn of the 20th century, so the early 1900s. And she and her father arrived at this very wealthy collector's house when she was just a baby. And so the collector took them in. His name's Mr. Locke. And she's been living there ever since. And so a big part of the story is that she's not white. She's either like, it sounds like her dad is black, but they also, the way that they describe him, he might be like native or indigenous. I don't know, but a lot of people in the reviews have said that they don't like that the way the book is written, because it's sort of written like Sarah Smarsh writing to a child that she never had, because on her mom's side, everyone was a teen mom and she was not a teen mom. So when she's talking about like her life growing up and her expectations for herself, how that was like not really a choice that she made, but it was something she was actively not trying to do, because it was a cycle she wanted to break. And so it is kind of weird that it's written that way. Sometimes I forget about it. I didn't think it was that bad in the first chapter, because it felt like she was acknowledging a cycle that she broke, if that makes sense. But also I don't feel like the whole book needed to be written that way. And there will go like large sections without her mentioning it. And she does use the second person, but it almost, you forget that she's talking to a child she never had. And it feels like she's talking to you, the reader. And then she'll mention the child, like that's the life you would have been brought into. And it's not like really bothering me that much as it seems to have bothered other reviewers, but it definitely is not my favorite thing, and it's not a choice that I agree with for the storytelling of the book. That being said, her experiences are really gripping. The other issue that I'm having with this book is that it's not in chronological order. So it skips around a lot, and I'm having a hard time keeping track of who people are, because she'll skip generations, but she doesn't say like my great grandmother. She calls her by her first name, Dorothy. And then her grandmother is Betty. And then her mom is Jeannie, I think is her mom's name. But she does that rather than say like my mother or my grandmother. And she'll sometimes reference them as who they are, and that helps me keep track better. But it is confusing, because I do find myself getting a little mixed up, if that makes sense. But I'm really liking it. I do think it's a really important read, and I do think it's a really interesting view on poverty, because it's specific to rural poverty, which I feel like isn't always the focus or isn't always what you think of when you think of poverty. So that is really interesting. The other thing that I'm really enjoying about this book is that she is very conscious of the fact that her family is white. And so she talks a lot about how like their poverty is different from the poverty of people of color and Black people and other people around her. But she's also, I think it helps that she mentions that sometimes, because it keeps you focused in the fact that she is talking about class. And so she doesn't discount the experiences of other people. She just makes it very clear that that's not the story she can tell, because that's not her story, which I appreciate. And I find works pretty well. So today we have our engagement shoot. So I just finished getting ready. It's not till tonight, but I wanted to make sure I had time to do my makeup in a way that I would like it. Also, I'm wearing this new like lounge set that I got from Old Navy, which is pretty cute. I went to Old Navy yesterday to find a dress to wear to a wedding that I'm going to next weekend. So you'll see that when I vlog that portion. We're going to a wedding in Nashville, so I will be vlogging at least getting ready probably, or at least like I'll do an outfit thing like I did the last time I went to a wedding. But very exciting. I don't remember where I was going with that. But yeah, we have our engagement shoot tonight. I think we're meeting our photographer over at Union Station at 5:30, and then we'll do whatever else we do. I'm sorry that this vlog has been not a whole lot of reading. I honestly just haven't been getting a lot of reading done. I've had a lot of like things that I have to get done that I've been doing instead, and so my reading is definitely suffering. I wish that I had the 10,000 Doors of January as an audiobook, because I feel like it's something that I would want to listen to while I was doing some of the things that I've been doing. But unfortunately, I don't have it as an audiobook. I have it on hold as an audiobook, but it's taking me a long, the hold is like 3 weeks or something, so I don't think I'm gonna get it before I finish the book. But that's where I'm at with reading. The way I was able to listen to my audiobook that I have anyways is I listened to it while I walked to work, and then yesterday I had to go to the mall, which is like 30 minutes away, to pick something up that I'd ordered from Nordstrom. So I went and picked that up, but that gave me like an hour of reading time, which I listened to this audiobook on like 2.5 times speed, which is like 2.5 hours of the audiobook. So it's been really good, but I am gonna go do something else. I don't know what. Maybe read, and I'll catch up with you guys when I have another update.